Hello everyone, this is Grace. It is August 21st, 2021, and we are continuing our study on what is the language of God's true people. And in the last video, we went over a few scriptures and just a lot of reasoning and common sense. So I'm going to repeat Luke, and we're going to focus in on our time a little bit more in this book, because Luke applies to our time. So just to do a quick review, John 19:20 is what happened during Jesus's time. And in Jesus's time, during the time of Calvary, the Pilate wrote and nailed to the cross words written in Hebrew first, Greek, and then Latin. He wrote it that way because Hebrew was the language of the Roman government and the Roman-controlled city. It was a Roman government, so he wrote it in Hebrew first. Greek was the language of the people, so he wrote it in Greek second. Latin was the language of God's people, so he wrote it there last because it was less popular and it was the least spoken. Fast forward to our time today, and we go to Luke to look at the interpretation of those scriptures, or the prophecies for those scriptures. And here, the subscription was written over him in Greek, which is what we know today as English. In Latin, which is what we know today. You can say Latin is Spanish, and that's fine, but the language of God's people is not Spanish. It's actually Italian. So you can say Spanish, Italian, Latin, whatever you want. Latin is the second language. And then Hebrew, they tell us Hebrew is the language of God's people. It's not true. It's not true. God's language, you're not going to change God's language twice in order to make it work. God doesn't need his words fixed by man. He doesn't need his language fixed by man. It's ludicrous. But they tell us that Hebrew is the language of God's people. It's in here for that reason, but it's not the language of God's people. This was the old language that the Romans spake. Which, by the way, is not the language that we know today. It's just not. So let's look at let's see, where do we begin? You know what? I just realized we forgot to look at the second use. Oh, we did look at the second use of Greek here. It was in Acts 21. And let's look at the second use of Greek. And this word Greek is only used twice, and the word for Greek in the book of John is only used twice. This one is also used in Revelation 9, verse 11. I'll show you real quick so you can see for yourself. Greek 1673 and Greek 1673. So we know that this is about our time, right? So it tells you in the Greek tongue, it has his name, Apollyon. Now, I tried to look these words up. I tried to look up this word right here, and I could not find anything like this anywhere. But I was able to look up Apollyon and break it down. And let me show you. Hold on a moment, because I have the dictionary. Believe it or not, I used the Italian I used the Italian dictionary to break it down. I found this word here, apo, which is a prefix. It means without is what I determined. It means without. Oh, let me show you the application I'm using. Okay, the application I'm using is, what is it called? Foxit. It's called Foxit. I don't think you can find it. I got it on downloads.com or downloads.net, whichever one it is. I got it when it first came out. When I got it, it was free. But you guys know when I love something, I immediately register it. So probably within the first week or so, I registered it. But it was so new, I put the wrong email address in there. And after about 3 emails later, and they hadn't fixed it, I just was like, okay, well, I'm just not going to register it because it's free anyway, and I didn't have to anyway. But I did register it. But I think I still have all of the features. I don't know if you can get it like this, because when I went back to try and update it, when I reread the descriptions, when I read the description of it, it looked like it had less features. Mine's is this color. The ones that are available today are purple like this. The one that I downloaded has this color, uses this color, this yellow. And then the one that's available today has purple. So you might be able to get all of these features. I don't know. But you can try. But yeah, this is what I use for my PDF reader. It's called Foxit. So enough about that. So anyway, I found this document. It is an Italian and English dictionary, and it has apo as being without or un. I just said without. So when you use the word un or without for apo, it means without, and then li means I think they say it means to destroy. Let's look. A destroyer, that is Satan, Apollyon. Okay, so un means to or undo, right? And then you have, so it's going to destroy something. And then you have the ly, which hold on. It changes an adjective to changes an adjective to an adverb, like from glad to gladly, from happy to happily. And then ion, I-O-N, makes it a noun. So you have the un, which is to destroy, changed into an action, which is then changed into a name. So that's how they came to destroyer, a destroyer, that is Satan, Apollyon. So we have the Greek tongue here, and we can work this out given what we have. But this here, I could find nothing that was even remotely close to a Badian. I couldn't break that down with anything. It just didn't mean anything. But this right here works out perfectly with Italian. Why? Because these two were together for so long. Yet and still the Hebrew tongue, they lived amongst the people, the Greeks. They were in captivity probably, longer than they were free. They'd just been in captivity for so long. And yet we have nothing. We have nothing like this. Listen, I'm going to get off topic here for a second. We're going to talk about legalized prostitution, because this is mostly an appeal to reason here. I didn't have any scriptures or anything. We're going to talk about reason and logic here in this video. So you can just switch it off right now if you need scripture. But you don't. You don't. So just hang in there for a moment. But we're going to talk about legalized prostitution. Now, I'm not for legalized prostitution or anything like that. I'm trying to make a point. Okay? Why isn't prostitution legalized? Listen, I'll tell you why it's not legalized. It's not legalized because men need to control women's body. They can't have them out there. Listen, it's just the way it is. They can't have them out there making money off of their own bodies. All right? And it's not even just women in this case. Men need to control men. They want all of the money. Actually, that's the reason. Men want all of the money, and they certainly don't want women to be having their own money out there having their own bodies. Why do I say that? Pornography is legal. You can go out there. Since forever, you've been able to go out there, let someone take pictures of your naked body and sell them. Anything that can be marketed is legal. Same thing with drugs. You can't grow drugs in your own backyard, because then you could make your own money. When I was growing up, there was a tree in every yard. What did they do? They started saying everything was deadly, everything was poisonous. Don't eat anything that grows in your backyard. Only eat the foods that we sell you, that we say are safe. All of my life, I've been growing up. And then, do you know that out of the blue, just out of the blue, out of nowhere, they started talking about some brown spider. Brown spiders are going around killing people all over the place. And I've never even heard of a brown spider. So now, when that poor little spider is walking through your house, completely innocent, looking for a bug, that spider is more likely to annoy you to death than to bite you and hurt you or kill you. It probably would annoy you to death before it killed you. But yet and still, out of horror, because everybody's talking about these brown spiders are going around killing everybody, then you have to get up and mess with that spider, which had no harm intended towards you. They scare you and scare you and scare you in order to control you and get your money. So when it comes to legalized prostitution, you can buy a prostitute at a house that's organized by a man where they get a piece of it. But you're never going to be able to sell your own body and get your own money, because that's not permitted. You can't have your own money. And I take it back what I said about it being a woman, because it has nothing to do with it being a woman. It's because they want all of the money. They want all the money. But anyway, back to the prostitution, the legalized prostitution. If someone was to go and make an argument to legalize prostitution, they might say, oh, well, the spread of diseases, even though we know that the spread of diseases would probably be less because there would be more controls put on it, this, that, and the other, they're going to give reasonable, they're going to say, no, it's not. The spread of diseases, it'll cut down the family, it'll encourage perversion, not in my neighborhood. They're going to give reasons that appeal to the common sensibilities and the moral dictates of a man. What do you think would happen if someone was to make an appeal to legalize prostitution and they were to go in front of a judge and say, hey, I'm not a married man, and it would just be more convenient for me if prostitution was illegal so that I could have my pick of the lovely ladies to lay down with whenever I'm at my leisure. Nobody's gonna. This guy would get kicked out of the court, laughed out of the courtroom. He would be laughed for scorn. Nobody's gonna go in there and tell the truth. Nobody's gonna go in there and say, I want to legalize prostitution so I can have my pick freely without fear and with constraints, so that I can have a competition, a better price, cleaner hookers, cleaner prostitutes. Sorry, I wasn't trying to offend anybody. Okay, but nobody's going to go in there and say that. They're going to appeal to the sensibilities of the people, moral and otherwise. So why do I talk about this? Why do I bring this up? I bring this up because we're going to talk about book burning. Back in the day, they told us that the Roman Church saw all of these horrible things in the books. And they, as a moral authority, decided that they couldn't have these things written in the books. And so they started burning books, burning books, burning books, burning books. Nonsense. It's just nonsense. They were burning history. They were burning all of the books that contradicted. Here's the thing. They were changing the Bible at this time. So if they were making all of these changes to the Bible and people were out there with history books saying something, with teaching history books as something other than what they were teaching, then it was a problem. So they had to become these overly pious people, and they had to get rid of all of the evidence. But they're not going to go out and say, look, we're getting ready to change the Bible. We're getting ready to move things around. We don't want you to have anything at all to contradict what we say. So they started killing people. Why did they kill them? Because they knew the truth and they wouldn't shut up about it. The Latin nations are all Catholic. There's a reason for that. They could let them speak the language because they weren't a threat. They were all recruited to their side. They had agreed not to read the Bible. They had agreed not to interpret the Bible. They had agreed to the dictates of the Catholic Church. They had agreed that the Pope was the authority. They had no competition in the Latin-speaking countries. Therefore, they could allow them to speak the language. But they could not allow it. They could not allow those rebels out there that were against the Catholic Church to speak the Latin language, because it would have caused a problem with them controlling the people. So they burnt all of the books that said anything other than what they said. They burnt all of the history books. They weren't burning books with pornography or anything like that in it. None of that is true. It's all just a lie. It's just a cover up. Because they can't tell you the truth. They killed protesters not because they had a different religion. They killed them because they wouldn't shut up about the lies that the Catholic Church was putting out. That's why people had to die. Just a moment. I'm not sure where I left off. I'm sorry. But we'll come back to that in a moment. I want to show you, if I think of something else, because I'm not really certain when all I said. But we'll come back to that in a moment. I want to show you some of the books. First of all, let me say this. Let me say, the only paleontologist slash archaeologist that I believe is Harry Hubbard. Harry Hubbard has established some time ago that the Italian language is the Hebrew language is very young. The Italian language is far older than the Hebrew language. He, as far as the Dead Sea Scrolls are concerned, the Dead Sea Scrolls were all written by one man. They were all written by one man, and they were supposed to be in Hebrew. Nobody spoke Hebrew. Nobody spoke it. Okay, that's what I wanted to say. Even when the Romans were getting rid of all of the evidence, right? They wanted to get rid of the language altogether. But they couldn't get rid of the language. The only reason why they allowed people to speak it at all was because all of the manuscripts were written in Latin. So in order to deceive the people, because the priests still had to be deceived, they had to leave Latin intact. But the plan was to only leave it intact in the church. That was the original plan. The priests could read it, but nobody else was allowed to interpret the scriptures. Nobody else was allowed to read the scriptures. But because they had all of these scriptures written in Latin, the language had to be kept alive. They wanted to be rid of all of it. This is what they wanted. It just wasn't possible in order to keep the people deceived. So they had to keep the original language, but they only kept it amongst the priests and amongst the faithful. Nobody else was allowed to speak that language. And it wasn't a problem because most of the Jews were already speaking Greek. All they had to do was forbid it to be taught further to their children. That's all they had to do. And it eventually would be gone. They would get rid of it themselves over time. Same thing as they do now. They rewrite history all the time. Some of you ought to have noticed it by now. Surely. It happens right in front of our eyes. They rewrite history. And that's exactly what they did then. But the original plan was to get rid of it altogether. I can't remember why now hold on. Let's get a better view of this. Oh, I don't need this. That's Greek lexicon. Oh, this is, hold on. Did you know that all birds, all plants, all animals, well, birds are animals, whatever, all mammals, all fish, they all have a scientific name. And that name is a Latin name. So I pulled this up with the bird names. Incidentally, you guys, they're still hiding information about plants from us. I went to archives.org, right? And I'm looking for books with the scientific names in them for plants. Now, I could get all kinds of books with scientific names for plants. But whenever I came across a book that had pictures in it that showed illustrations or drawings of the plants and identified them by their scientific names and their characteristics, you couldn't just download those books. I couldn't download not one of them. I had to borrow any book that had pictures that would educate you on which foods were safe for consumption, for medicine. They don't want you to know. They're still hiding it from you even today. Parts of scientific names. The first two parts, the binomen, partus major, are written in a Latin or Neo-Latin form. The first part of the name denotes the genus, distinguishing a group of related species or an isolated distinctive species. The second part of the binomen Beginning with a lowercase letter is the specific or trivial name distinguishing the species within the genus. For the birds. And they all do this. Plants, mammals, birds, fishes, you name it. They all have a Latin name. Why? Because these names came over on the boat. This is nothing that we could do today. Let's look at the next document, you'll see. So this is too much. There's a fit to page here. Never mind, we don't need it. We're good. Okay, so this is for the plants. Oh, I didn't show you. Standardized plant names. Okay, so the first part I'm going to read to you is some of the reasons for the standards, is some of the problems that they have been facing. We'll start from here. The confusion of names in the horticulture plant world is at present so great as to clog popular plant knowledge and actually to limit to no small degree the use of certain trees, shrubs, and flowers in our American plantings. The consequent loss to the to the tradesman and planter is obvious. For example, less than 6 Latin binomials, I'm not going to read those, you can see them here. While as common names, okay, hold on. We have, and then it gives the common names, but it's pointing out the importance for this book in order to consolidate some of those names because it's causing confusion. Let's make this bigger because okay. So let's go to the second bookmark here. Are you kidding me? Okay. In the winter of 1915 and 1916, the committee took advantage of an opportunity afforded by the publication of the 6th volume of the Standard Cyclopedia of Horticulture, in which Dr. L. H. Bailey, its editor, included a finding list of Latin or Latinized binomials commonly used in North America literature and commerce with their equivalents in the cyclopedia. And I have one more bookmark here that I want to look at. It will be noticed that in this work, many plants are listed only by their Latin names because they all have Latin names. They all have Latin names. Standardized plant names. I think that was my appeal to reason for this study. I can't think of anything else that I wanted to say. You can look up the mammal names, all of the animals' names, by the way. I think it's on Google. If not, it'll certainly be on Wikipedia. It's known. Because, look, there's no way people could get together today or then and do this. Those names came over with Noah. They had a name for all the plants and animals. It was written down in a book. It was brought over on the boat. There just wasn't anything in place that would have allowed the people to communicate in order to establish a name. And it was established in Latin because Latin was the language of the people of God. It's what Adam spoke. It's what Noah spoke. It's what was handed down to the people of God. Now, when the languages were confused, it was carried over to the people of Moses. I mean, not Moses, I'm sorry, Abraham. But that was the language of the people of God, Latin or Italian today. I'm going to pause you to see if there's anything else I wanted to see if I can think of anything else I wanted to say. Just a moment. I just want to make sure that I went over this scripture with you. Greek is English as we know it today. That's why Greek is first in Luke, because we speak Greek. Latin is Italian. And then Hebrew is the language that the Romans spoke during the time of Jesus, but we don't know what that language is today. It is not the Hebrew that we know today. Hebrew was those books that you hear about, the Dead Sea Scrolls that were all written in Hebrew, written by the hand of one man. They've been proven to be fake long ago. Why cling to lies with bloody fingers, hoping to have more information? The language of the people of God was Latin, or Italian as we know it today. And it was hidden from us, like so many things were hidden from us, in order to control the truth as we know it, in order to control the scriptures of God. But we're not doing that anymore. We're not. We're reading through these scriptures and we're weeding out the lies. I guess that's all I have to say. I'll see you in the next video.